On today's show, we're digging into the region that I spent the entire year scouting, the USHL, as we'll be looking at almost every single USHLer that got drafted at the 2025 NHL Draft.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this show, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. I'm your host, Sebastian High, the USHL scout at Elite Prospects. And on today's episode, we'll be delving into that region and all the players that ended up getting drafted from the USHL. We'll probably be skipping over the players that were playing college hockey this season that have had previous USHL careers. We'll be mentioning a few, giving some shout outs, but mostly we'll be covering the guys that were playing USHL hockey this past season. And there were a lot of them. There's like 50 players who played in the USHL that got drafted in the 2025 NHL Draft. And again, we'll be talking about pretty much all of them. So lots to look forward to here on the show today. So make yourselves comfortable. Let's just delve straight into it here with the guys from the first round in the USHL. So for those watching on YouTube, as you can see on my screen, I just put up the overall NHL draft results over at Elite Prospects, and I've listed the player scoring and the stats to just be from the USHL. So all the players with points in their columns that you can see here are players that have USHL careers, but not all of them played there this season. Some of these stats are from years past. So let's kick things off with the first guy with USHL experience who got drafted at 7th overall, James Hagans. Of course, he scored 35 goals and 87 points in the USHL in just 57 games in 2 seasons split with the NTDP, playing up in an age group there as well for one of those seasons, and overall a player that's just so fantastic. But he wasn't in the USHL this season, so all he gets is a shout out. And the same thing can be said about the next guy here, Logan Hensler, 23 to the Ottawa Senators. The right shot defenseman from the Wisconsin Badgers this season was also another NTDP alum who played some really good minutes in the USHL. A player I like a bunch and wrote an article about at Elite Prospects as well. If you have not read it, I would certainly recommend. And then at 24, we have the first player who's played USHL hockey this season who got selected, and that's William Horcoff, a player who did end the season playing college hockey with the University of Michigan, but he made an unorthodox jump from the NTDP to college hockey midway through the campaign around Christmas time. And he played some really good minutes there as well once he made that jump to the NCAA. But with the NTDP was largely playing like a middle six play connecting role from the wing, getting pucks from the boards to the middle of the ice. But this is a very intelligent player that I think that Pittsburgh Penguins fans are going to really like down the stretch. You may have missed out on Ryker Lee there a couple years ago, but I think Will Horcoff brings you some similar qualities. I think a little bit less in terms of like outright leadership and swagger, perhaps, but you get a bigger body. You have a player that skates a bit better, and a guy who I think has a similar level of IQ, which has always been a special element with Rutger McGroarty. So that's a really nice little replacement pick there for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And then 25, the Chicago Blackhawks picked up Vaclav Nestrasil, my favorite guy from the USHL. You've been hearing me raving and ranting about this guy all year long. I love his size, 6'6", 190 pounds, still has a lot of filling out to do in his frame, was only really discovering the physical side of the game this season. The first time his coaches told him to go out and play physical, and he went out and did it. So he's still raw in that facet, but I think that there's just so much growth potential here, and he adds that real creativity and deft puck touches, and the handling and the playmaking are real strengths. I think that the shot is relatively heavy, but beyond everything, it's just the motor, the intensity, the buy-in, the defensive details. He's such a trustable player. And that's something that I think the Blackhawks are really going to love for years to come. Then the Nashville Predators, the pick right after that, went out and picked Ryker Lee, the reigning USHL Rookie of the Season with the Madison Capitals, who scored 70 points in 60 games. Most of that coming this past season, but a little bit coming the year before. He's a guy with elite hands and a really heavy shot, but more than anything, a really, really creative mind, I think. Like the handling definitely is a high-end tool, but it's the creativity and processing speed that really drive it. And as the year went on, he added more and more forechecking skill and physicality, got more comfortable at his frame, was moving with a bit more comfort on the ice. I think he's on an upward trajectory and is a great upside swing there for the Predators. Then Mason West went 29th overall to the Chicago Blackhawks. He who scored 9 points in 10 games at year's end with the Fargo Force after dominating the ranks at the Minnesota high school level in both hockey and football with Edina High. And he's now fully committed to hockey as his sport of choice, and that earned him a first-round slot here on draft day. So exciting stuff there for the Chicago Blackhawks and for Mason West, a player with a whole bunch of raw upside. He's a fantastic skater, incredible in terms of awareness and scanning, and that peripheral vision of a quarterback certainly does shine through in his profile. There's so much to like with Mason West, and yeah, it's a risk in the first round, but look, the Blackhawks have had so many high-end selections. They have the luxury of being able to take a risk, and this is the kind of risk to take. The upside is tremendous for the 6'6", 200+ pound right shot winger. Moving on with Cullen Potter, who opted out of the USHL this season, skipping the NTDP for a year and going straight to college with ASU, Arizona State University, where he scored 22 points in 35. He scored 22 points in 35 games with the NTDP in the USHL last season as a D-1, and in his underage season with the program. But he's a very good player and a guy that I respect a lot. But next we have Jacob Rombeck at 35 to the Nashville Predators, a defensive defenseman who's excellent on retrievals. I think that he's massive, right? At 6'6", he's over 200 pounds. Still has to learn to use his frame a bit more violently and physically and aggressively. So those aspects will have to grow. But with the Nashville Predators, I think with that development team, they're really going to beat that drum into him. And he's a very a quick learner, I have found in my viewings. He absorbs the information around him really quickly, both in terms of learning from his mistakes and also recognizing mistakes of the opposition. I think he's an intelligent, potential second pairing guy there for the Predators. Then Carter Amaka went at 38th overall to the Philadelphia Flyers, who went down with injury, of course, back in November, which ended his season with a knee surgery. And injuries are the big concern with Amaka. But on the ice, this is a guy with real physicality, a decent skating ability, and just that size and some really impressive tools in terms of handling flashes and offensive activations. I think that the on-puck decision-making and the overall composure as a passer definitely need work, but that's going to come with time, hopefully, especially as he gets more reps and stays healthy, with fingers crossed. But I think that Philadelphia got a really fun upside swing here with Amako, and they followed that right up 2 picks later with Jack Murtagh, the sniper from the NTDP this season, who scored 16 goals and 37 points in 58 games, mostly again this campaign rather than just last season. And he's a player that I think is very projectable to the NHL, brings that intensity, brings that goal scoring ability, and really grew out his playmaking game this season. He just has that consistent motor to play a bottom six checking role if that's where he tops out, but has the skill and the goal scoring to rise higher than that in a lineup as well. Then we move to another Philadelphia Flyers pick here with Shane Van Sage, who was playing in the NCAA this year with Michigan State University, but was with the NTDP last campaign as a D-1. Very fun, violent player that has a bit more offensive room to grow as well. Charlie Serrato, a re-entry who just dominated as a freshman this year in college, scoring at about a point a game pace, going at 49th to the Carolina Hurricanes, and the New Jersey Devils selecting Conrad Fondrick at 50th overall. A player that I have a lot of questions about in terms of the projectable skills. He's a guy who is a bit subpar in both skating and physicality, is very much pushed to the perimeter and does his work from the perimeter rather than from the middle lane. That's always a bit of a point of concern for me when it comes to projecting players, but he's definitely a player with some handling flash at his best when the playmaking and handling collide for it, his most cohesive flashes of upside It's really, really impressive. But these things have kind of been few and far between this season in my viewings. So on top of that, there was an injury to end the season. So I think with Fondrick, I have a few more doubts than your average scout. But at 51, the Boston Bruins went out and swung on Will Moore, who fell into their laps here in the middle of the second round. A very skilled, toolsy, intelligent player who I think has so much more offense to show than he's shown so far. He's listed as a forward here at Elite Prospects, and he started the year as a center, but got moved over to the wing. I think he's intelligent enough and a good enough connective playmaker to play the middle of the ice. But we'll see where he does end up in terms of like maximizing his tools. Maybe the wing is the best spot for him. We will see. But I think Boston's a great spot for him. He'll just stay in town there for quite some time as he's going over to Boston University to pursue his development. And after that, hopefully staying in New England there with the Providence Bruins and eventually Boston. Then Cole McKinney, another program player, going to the San Jose Sharks at 53rd overall. Again, a player I've loved a lot all season long. I really respect how he plays the game, the high intensity, the work rate, the overall two-way just battle that this guy has. And he really grew his connective playmaking game. I think that this is a guy with a very clear bottom six potential, but with enough skill that maybe make it work in a middle six capacity at the end of the day if he really hits his upside and accelerates his development. But he's a player I've really enjoyed watching this season. So a guy who's also committed to the University of Michigan, which I think is going to be a great spot for him to really blossom. So very exciting here for a player like Cole McKinney. Moving on, 62nd overall, the Carolina Hurricanes pick Ivan Ryabkin. The big controversial centerman who plays with so much anger and violence and bloodlust on the ice, had so many penalty minutes. I mean, right, 27 games played, 19 goals, 11 assists, 30 points, and 70 penalty minutes. This guy gets in the box, but he also got the puck in the net very, very, very regularly in the USHL. I think his shot as an individual tool is above average, but not spectacular. But this is a guy with a really, really high-end vision of the ice, and it's just the pace, it's the motor, it's the stamina, it's the engagement, it's the two-way buy-in, the system buy-in that needs so much work with Ryabkin. But if any team in the league can get the most out of him with those facets being his weaknesses, it's the Carolina Hurricanes. Last but not least, for this segment, we've got Benjamin Keevan going at 63rd overall to the New Jersey Devils. A very skilled, dynamic winger who constantly pushes the pace, is a high-end skater, very good puck handler, and has had really nice flashes of playmaking this season and also in his D-1. This was the highest scoring player from the 2023-24 USHL season that returned for the 24-25 campaign. And he did that as a D-1 player. So very impressive, but the offensive production stagnated a little bit in Des Moines this season. And when he was called up to the NTDP, it was always for a bottom six checking capacity, with the strange sole exception being the CHL NTDP showcase, where they just threw him to the dogs out there in like a top six capacity. It was the only time that he wasn't just a checking forward. But I think that there's a lot of potential here with Keevan, especially in terms of that dynamic skill, the incessant pace and motor, and being able to create at those high speeds. But that wraps things up here for the first segment. In the next one, we'll be breaking down guys from the third and fourth rounds before wrapping it up with the best of the rest. But first, a quick message from our sponsors here at Locked On NHL Prospects. Ever wish that managing your money could feel easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Ever since I got Monarch, it's been so much easier to track my daily spending and to make sure I'm not going over budget in my day-to-day. It's so easy to get carried away with deliveries or anything else, like a takeaway food. But with Monarch, you can stay on top of all of those purchases. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. All right, let's keep this episode rolling here in the second segment. Breaking down the USHLers selected on draft day. And let's go back, get the elite prospects draft tracker back up on screen for those watching on YouTube. And we'll continue things here and resume our breakdown with 70th overall, where the New York Rangers swung on Sean Barnhill, a smooth skating right shot defenseman, 6'6", over 200 pounds. A little bit like Jacob Rombach, he's still learning how to use his frame to create physical advantages and to be a bit more mean and aggressive and violent. So these elements are going to need to see a bit more growth before he makes the jump to the NHL. But with a good first pass and overall, I think a profile that could mature into a really, really fun NHL player as a big third line piece, or maybe a mobile number 4 defenseman as well in a second pairing. I love this pick for the Rangers. Then the Pittsburgh Penguins picked Charlie Trethewey in the 3rd round at 73rd overall. Another very mobile player, right shot defenseman, 6'2", 200 pounds, one of the younger players in this draft class. As an August birthday, and he's a guy that I really respected in terms of how he's developed this season. He started the year playing real hot potato with the puck, really poor decision making, especially as a passer with the puck on his stick, getting just like forced into mistake after mistake, and they just compounded and snowballed into really rough games. By year's end, he was a really stabilizing force for the NTDP, just locking things down and making the simple play as it arose in front of him, rather than trying to force or create the elite or like game-breaking play every single time he has the puck on his stick. He's got a heavy shot, and overall is a toolsy player that I think had real value into the top 50 on draft day. So to get him at 73 is fantastic value for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Cooper Simpson is up next from the Boston Bruins at 79th overall, a very skilled player who's been playing high school hockey a lot over the past couple seasons, but looked fantastic at year's end when he made the jump with Tri-City to the USHL. There he played in like 10 games at the end of the season, scoring like 7 goals and 2 assists, just getting really involved as an off-the-rush shooter. He's a great skater with soft hands, decent playmaking flashes, but more than anything, a howitzer of a shot, which is able to load off in motion and from awkward angles, and he has a diverse arsenal of releases as well to deceive defenses. I think this is a guy with so much offensive, like, pure ability that he could have contended for the first round in terms of pure skill in this year's draft class. So in the 3rd round, that is found money. At 80th overall, the Flames select Mace'o Phillips. Big, heavy, mean left shot defenseman. He's probably just going to be a bottom pairing guy if he hits the NHL, but he's going to be a playoff style guy if he does. He's like 6'6", 220 pounds, hits like an absolute truck, one of the more like violent players in the 2025 NHL draft. And as you can see in 58 USHL games, he has 7 points and 119 penalty minutes. That's the kind of player this guy is. He's mean, he's tough to play against, but he doesn't really get in on the score sheet. Then at 88th overall, NTDP alum and current OHL player Christian Epperson was selected by the LA Kings. Then at 90th, Mason Moe, the centerman who's been playing with Ryker Lee all season with the Madison Capitals, was picked up by the New Jersey Devils, who scored 18 goals and 45 points in 63 career games in the USHL. He's a player that I think is just well-rounded. He's physically involved. He's average size, but he's very versatile. He can play across the forward line at either wing or down the middle. And overall, I think he's been getting more and more effective as an off-puck facilitator for his line mates in recent seasons. So he's a guy I like in this range of the draft for the Devils. Brady Peddle, for his part, going to the Pittsburgh Penguins at 91st overall, is a physical, punishing left shot defenseman, 6'3", 200 pounds, playing with the Waterloo Blackhawks, was a really important piece of their run to the Clark Cup Finals against the Muskegon Lumberjacks after scoring 10 points in 60-plus games in the regular season this year. He scored 10 points in 15 playoff games. He really stepped it up, and it wasn't flashy. It wasn't dynamic in the offensive zone, just getting pucks to the net, going with asume and just getting a little bit more comfortable with the puck on his stick under pressure in the offensive zone and making intelligent plays more consistently. I think he's a guy with a real shot at being a bottom pairing player in the NHL someday. Then Blake Vanek went to the Ottawa Senators at 93rd overall, who played 9 games with the Chicago Steel this season, scoring 4 goals and 5 points. He's the son of Thomas Vanek. Yes, I feel old as well. But he's a player that is really big, very young for the draft class, has an howitzer of a shot, and everything else is unbelievably raw. He's a very poor skater. The defensive engagement is very come and go. So many immature habits. He struggles to find space in the offensive zone, but when he gets the puck on his stick in a dangerous spot, you can almost bet on that puck finding the back of the net. At 95, the San Jose Sharks select Teddy Mutrin, a player who scored 33 points in 54 games in the USHL with the Chicago Steel, and he's a guy that brings a real level of physicality to the equation. He's high pace, he's intense, he's difficult to play against, has a hard shot off the rush, and was able to implement a lot more delays and stops and starts into his game this season, which made him a lot more dangerous and able to exploit spaces that his heavy drives down the middle lane were able to create. So he's a player I like a bunch here for the San Jose Sharks. But to wrap up this first segment, we've got two more guys here in the fourth round. Drew Schock going 101st overall to the Anaheim Ducks. This is an offensive defenseman who likes to shimmy at the blue line and activate up very aggressively into the offensive zone. Overall, I'd say the tools are interesting enough with him. They're playmaking flashes. He's a diverse skater, I would say, in terms of like he's constantly trying to use 10 and 2 maneuvers, try to like get around opposition to solve problems, but he really struggles in terms of just straight line speed and explosiveness. So the way he was moving this year in the USHL, I wouldn't say was a strength. And then the Minnesota Wild select Adam Banach at 102, the pick afterwards. The guy with an insanely good motor, a really good playmaking touch, and a whole lot of straight line speed and pace. This is a very fun player to watch, but also was just kind of spamming the saucer pass button this season, was very inefficient as a playmaker. And overall, even though his vision's really good in terms of finding options, his actual decision-making of which options to attempt, I think needs a whole lot of work. So he's a long-term project pick here for Minnesota, but if he pans out, this could be a really fun and unique middle six playmaking high motor winger. Probably not a center at the next level, but he's a very fun player. And then last but not least, actually, for this segment, we have the Montreal Canadiens selecting L.J. Mooney at 113th overall. A very intense forward, just like Adam Banach, but I think he has a bit more pop to his game and is a bit more projectable as well. Where Adam Banach gets forced to the perimeter, LJ Mooney just constantly drives the middle of the ice. His motor's even better than Banach's. His straight line speed is even better than Banach's is. And even though I think his playmaking is about as unrefined as it is with Adam Banach, LJ Mooney is on a just continuous cycle or trajectory of improving his game. Every single time I watch him, it's better than the last time, pretty much. And I think that's something that I am so happy that the Montreal Canadiens bet on as someone that I grew up a fan of this team. And he's a guy that I think could really like take on that Brendan Gallagher role someday in the lineup, just bringing real amounts of energy, but also offensive threat. He's a player with significant transition upside. So very fun selection there for the Montreal Canadiens. But that wraps things up here for the second segment. In the final one, we'll wrap things up with the best of the rest. But first, a quick message from our sponsors here at Locked On NHL Prospects. All right, let's wrap up the show here in the final segment, breaking down the USHL draft class here from the 2025 NHL entry draft. So we got Caden Harrington going at 120th to the Los Angeles Kings. This is a player who was a re-entry this season and last year as a draft eligible, struggled a little bit more in terms of the physical side of the game, but completely doubled down and just became very good in the physical aspects defensively, to the point that it became one of his bigger strengths this season in the USHL, on top of scoring a bunch of goals from the point with Lincoln this year, just being really involved in the offensive zone and at points being one of the more dynamic defensemen in the entire league this campaign. That's a smart swing on upside, I think, for the Los Angeles Kings. Then the NTDP captain, Asher Barnett, went to the Edmonton Oilers at 131st overall, a player that doesn't bring you much flash offensively, but he skates well. He is relatively physical. He keeps bets to the outside. He plays a very simple brand of hockey. If he makes it, he's going to be like number 6, number 7 NHL defenseman, but more likely than not, a lower tier professional player than the NHL. But still, I think a swing on leadership capabilities and a bit more room to grow as well in terms of exploring the offensive impact. The Toronto Maple Leafs nabbed William Bell at 137th overall in the draft, a player that with real size, he's very physical, he likes to throw the body around, has a bit of a budding power forward kind of game, but I think that the overall awareness, the situational awareness, the scanning habits, and the timing need a whole bunch of work in terms of refining in order to get him to an NHL capacity. That said, I think that the handling skill can be quite good in tight, and he's an interesting player here that I really quite enjoyed, especially earlier on in the campaign. The New York Islanders picked up at 138th overall Sam Larilla of the Tri-City Storm, a player that was just so dominant this season in the USHL, moving the puck with real confidence and swagger, and also being very physically involved and engaged defensively. He's not the biggest guy in the world, 6'1", like 190 pounds. He looks a little bit smaller than that on the ice, I would say, in terms of height, but he's sturdy, he's difficult to get around, and he skates relatively well. I like this pick as an overager for the New York Islanders. Then the Calgary Flames selected one of the highest scorers in the USHL this season, Ethan Wittenbach, of the Sioux Falls Stampede. And he's a guy that, again, scored 24 goals and 51 points in 44 USHL games in his career. And he's a player that I think was really driving the offense there for his team this season. I have some questions around how far the tools are going to carry him, especially in terms of the skating and the physicality, but the overall pace, the motor, the engagement, as well as the playmaking touch, I think are really interesting with him. Then the Tampa Bay Lightning picked up one of my favorite players in this draft class among USHLers, Everett Baldwin, a very mobile right shot defenseman who's a little bit undersized at 6 feet, 176 pounds, but he's very sturdy, just like Sam Larilla. He's a guy that gets underneath his opponents. It's difficult to move off of his spot when he really plants himself and gets in his roots. And I think he's a player that also has significant upside with the puck on his stick in transition, as a puck handler, as a playmaker. This is a guy that loves to move the puck, and he's able to move with such grace on the ice. So to get that in the 5th round, later 5th round, is really great stuff there for the Lightning. Then the Washington Capitals picked up Jackson Crowder from the Chicago Steel at 155th overall. He's a guy that is a bit of a power forward, heavy player, a bit of a lumbering skating stride, but decent hands in tight, some flashes of goal scoring ability, especially off the rush. I think that this is an interesting enough swing on tools. And then Buffalo Sabres then picked up his teammate, line mate, Ashton Schultz from the Chicago Steel, a two-way center with good details, who really got comfortable quickly at the USHL level, making the jump from prep school, high school hockey. And I think he's a guy that has limited upside, but could be a really solid 4th line piece down the stretch for the Sabres. Anthony Alain-Samaki is the next one up here at 168, a very mobile two-way defenseman who has a lot of physical runway to fill out his frame and to gain a little bit more confidence with the puck on his stick and develop his shot to anything beyond the muffin that it currently is. Once he does that, in terms of the activation habits, the playmaking flashes, the confidence on puck, this is one of the more exciting talents in terms of blue line offensive defensemen in the USHL this season. Then the Pittsburgh Penguins went for heft and just pure farm strength with Carter Sanderson, a guy with that real hay bale strength, and he's able to hit very hard. He's difficult to push out the puck, had 62 penalty minutes to 11 points in 48 games this season. He's a fun player to kind of just be that physical, like 13th forward down the line. Then the Ottawa Senators picked up at 181 Bruno Idzan, the Croatian sensation, who scored 22 goals and 44 points in 36 games after coming over from the Alps Hockey League this season, playing against a low-tier professional competition there in Central Southern Europe. And I think he's a good fit here in Ottawa. He brings a level of goal scoring ability, good shot, but more than anything, excellent off puck instincts. He's constantly finding soft ice. He's really one of the smartest off puck creators in the USHL from this past season. And even though I think that he has some room to grow in terms of the speed and the consistency of his impact, he's a guy whose minutes really like plummeted come playoff time. I still think that this is an interesting swing on upside and tools and production for the Sens. The Winnipeg Jets selected Edison Engel here in the 6th round at 188th overall. And he's a great puck-moving mobile defenseman as well, a guy that I had ranked inside my 3rd round. So to get him in the late 6th is great value here for the Jets. He's a guy I think makes a really good first pass, is able to really use his high-end skating and deep stride to just explode away in 1 or 2 strides from pressure in order to make the quick first pass and get the puck out of the danger area. I think he's a really, really solid selection here late in the 6th. But I wanted to shout out a couple more 7th round picks here. We got Brendan McMorrow, a re-entry going to the LA Kings. We've got Jacob Kvasnicka from the NTDP, a checking winger, going to the New York Islanders. Matthew Lansing, a fun two-way center with good skating and decent playmaking flashes, going to the Vancouver Canucks. Maxon Vig, a re-entry physical defensive defenseman, going to the Montreal Canadiens. Richard Gallant, a playmaking play connector with a good motor, but is undersized and has subpar physicality and skating, going to the Sharks at 210. And Nolan Road to the Colorado Avalanche here at 214th overall, a high-scoring, off-puck offensive scorer who I think has a real lack of tools to translate to the professional level, let alone to the NHL. And then the last 2 guys, 2 players I liked a lot this season, and I'm very glad that they got selected. Ryan Rusinski from the Youngstown Phantoms going to the Buffalo Sabres at 219, a hard-working guy with an incessant motor and really good instincts and scoring instincts around the net. He gets himself to the dirty areas, and I think that he's also an absolute face-off demon. So a lot to like there for the Buffalo Sabres. And last but most certainly not least, to the Edmonton Oilers at 223 overall, Aidan Park, a two-way center with really good details in both directions, a good shot in the offensive zone. He's going to have to improve his skating and handling at speed, especially in order to project to the NHL, but has a lot of the details and the habit that you want to see in a projected bottom 6 center someday. So that is it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening as always. And please do leave your comments down below. What are your thoughts on this USHL draft class that clearly lacked in superstar talent, but had a lot of fun depth guys that did get picked? And I'm personally very happy for all these individual players to have had this special day. And also a little bit selfishly happy that I was familiar with pretty much every single player that got picked out of the USHL this season. I feel like I did my job this year with elite prospects, but that's everything from me today. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I'm your host, Sebastian High, and I'll catch you tuning in again very, very soon.